Hi, welcome to the Wide Open Road Arts Roving Conversation series. This conversation is with Emma-Jane Christie and Alex Sanson. Emma-Jane creates textual, handmade objects and garments that explore history, texture, beauty and resource use to challenge the pervasive throwaway culture. As a kinetic sculptor, Alex's practice is concerned with kinetic and sometimes interactive experience. He creates both permanent large-scale public works and small-scale gallery-based sculptural works with an interest in the notion of balance. So we have Alex and Emma with us today. Emma showed with Wide Open Road ages ago. I don't really know when it was, but
3 years, 4 years ago.
No, really?
Yeah,
Can't be 4.
Or 3 years ago. Yeah.
Anyway, so thank you for talking with us today. So we're just we're going to start off asking a bit about your practices and just sort of like how you came around to art making. Where it started.
How it all began.
Yeah, we can start with that. You've been doing it longer than me.
Oh, I've been tinkering away for ages now, I guess, since the early 90s in one form or other. And I've done some sort of design and other sort of work to associated sort of disciplines. But over recent years I've pared that back to just pretty much almost purely an arts practice.
Yep.
And mostly focusing on kinetic or interactive sculpture and outdoors largely, but some indoors, and sort of either temporary for festivals and events or some more permanent works as well.
Yeah. So has that moved much from what you were doing back in the early 90s when you started to what you're doing now?
Yes, considerably. I mean, I started off making quite small things, and in the early 90s I was doing a lot of sort of functional stuff and architectural sort of metalwork and design, as well as fairly small scale sculpture. And it's got bigger and more complex. Probably from the early 2000s it got much bigger as I started doing a lot of the festivals and events, and things had to be big for those big outdoor spaces. And I suppose my ability to make larger things increased, and just to suit the scale of an outdoor event of when there's giant trees around or big buildings, things to fit in and make sense in that environment had to fit that scale, so it was necessary for larger things.
So was your move here, was that partially to accommodate big stuff?
Not really. We just had a fortuitous thing when our house ended in the city, and we were offered a caretaker role at a farm elsewhere, which we had for several years.
Great.
Which allowed us to save up and
Look around.
And save up for a deposit on the place. But we were in a very beautiful spot, but we were very socially isolated.
Where was that?
Tallarook.
Yes.
Sort of near Seymour.
Yeah.
The Hume
Yeah.
Up
That's
on
right,
the,
you
up
go
on the
through
sort
it,
of
don't
ridge.
you?
Yeah, it hints, but as you get up into the bush of that, it's absolutely beautiful.
Is it?
Yeah, you actually up the Hume, you wouldn't even know it was there, would you?
No.
There's a big granite sort of ridge line.
Yeah,
It's
it's
absolutely stunning.
Mm.
But we were very isolated, and especially as we had kids. And so we looked for somewhere with more of a community.
Yeah.
This offered, we thought.
So you had been to Castlemaine before, or you?
No, we actually hadn't.
Not much.
How did we even know?
It was just a bit of a punt, frankly.
Isn't it? Like, how do people know?
We did, and then we did come over, and it just felt really nice. And I think we knew that there was an artist market, so we figured there must be artists. But yeah, we didn't know much about the town. And
So sorry, when was that? That was
About 10 years ago.
10 years ago.
We looked in Warburton as well.
Yeah, Warburton's gorgeous.
Which is also beautiful, and I love mountains and the a bit wetter climate.
Yes, much greener.
Much greener, but and I do miss water out here. But I don't know, there is something I really love about here.
I felt it was a bit heavy. It felt a bit heavy for me.
Warburton.
Yeah.
Too much green.
Too much.
You don't want too much fertility there, do you?
I mean, I love water, and I do miss it. It's dry here. It just felt a bit heavy. I don't know how to just. Yeah, it was just a bit like. I don't know. Not much sunlight either. There's a lot of green, but
yes, there's a trade-off, isn't there?
There's a trade-off.
I think the nature of that sort of mountainous things is all houses do get jammed into little valleys, and so there is less light.
There is less light.
And you tend to be a bit closer together, I think.
Yeah.
So when you said that you were looking for a community, so you moved here, was it an artist community specifically that you're looking for?
And I suppose like-minded of socially and politically sort of aligned values.
We probably took a punt because we didn't.
We had a bit of a sense though.
We somehow had a sense.
you sensed right by the sounds of it. You were feeling happy about it.
We felt at home instantly.
Yeah.
Didn't we?
Yeah.
I mean, we're in Taradale, so we're a little bit out.
Yeah.
It's so nice.
Well, we did come and have lots of little scouting missions. We didn't just, it wasn't completely blind choice.
No, we did come and have a few overnight stays. To suss it out.
So when you say you're really happy here, what do you think is contributing to that?
I think the people, the like-mindedness. There's enough people that share our values, I feel. Like even this morning going to that little workshop I went to, which is not in Castlemaine necessarily, but
the region.
Not just my neighbour. We've got similar politics, and person down the road's got similar politics and values, and that feels really good, nice.
After living in Melbourne, do you think? Or?
Well, I guess in Melbourne we clustered, so you kind of, drawn to that kind of thing,
But where we were in Tallarook, the nearest sort of town is Seymour. It's a much more conservative town. And I mean, every town has its
element,
has its spread of people, and I mean that's fine. But you still need to have people you gel with wherever you go.
Yeah.
It didn't have that nice feel. I don't know. It's got a really nice feel, Castlemaine. It feels nice.
Everyone says it.
Yeah.
Welcoming and
generous. I feel there's a generosity.
Yeah.
Sort of an openness. And
I enjoy walking down the street and knowing I'll probably bump into someone, and or I don't have to talk to them as well. Just go, I'm not in the mood. Whatever. But it's,
So what about your practice, Emma? When and how and why did you start making that?
I just started tinkering away at making things, but not until I was in my 20s.
So you didn't study?
I studied fashion design. Yeah, but that was as a mature age.
So not when
prior to that, I did environmental science and I did horticulture.
Oh wow! Did a real range.
Yeah, I didn't finish anything. I gave it all a bit of a go. I don't know, and I never quite knew what I wanted to do leaving school. But I wasn't I didn't do art at school. I just make things. I enjoy using my hands, and that kind of just grew, I guess, out of making.
And now, how would you describe what you're doing? What's taking up most of your time?
Well, going back after just giving myself to my kids for a really long time, I'm going to start making dresses again. What's funny is I think it's more artisan rather than artist that I sort of identify with, rather than, so I make things that I hope, kind of, I don't know, embedded with meaning and,
well, it's a very creative process that you go through.
It's a creative process, But then I do dabble in little bits of, art like I did with you guys, and I've made a little it's sort of textile art in a way, because what I do with fabric is I kind of create mini sculptures, I feel like. And then they can either become that or they can become that, so
wearable.
Yeah, or wearable. But no particular idea about how I was going to do it in the beginning. Just kind of evolved.
And what you make is quite unique, you're very distinctive. Is that something that you're working through as you're making? You reuse materials, is that right?
Well, I even just take a bland bit of fabric and try and add texture or sort of look at how it can becomes something else rather than just a bit of fabric. So, but I am inspired a lot by nature and how nature kind of works. I don't know, it's amazing. And the forms in nature and things like that. So.
Do you think that's one of the reasons why you're living in this area, because of the natural environment?
I think it was both really important to us to live in nature.
Yes, very much so.
Close to trees and I mean, I tend to look more at the micro, you know, I like lichen and moss and little leaf veins and things like that, and that kind of inspires something in me, whereas it probably does for you too, really.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
That micro and macro.
I find a lot of my more creative moments are out walking in the forest with a dog, which we don't do quite enough. But it's
we need to do
that
more.
sort of semi-daydreaming sort of things where your mind is taken away by the place you're in or something. Often it's just a really good moments for dreaming of things.
It's possible.
That's something, what you just say, the word dreaming reminds me of someone I was talking to recently, another artist, and she was saying how she's just doing her PhD at the moment, and she was saying how one of the things that doing the PhD has allowed her is she'll have dream time again, because you kind of paid, you've been paid, so you don't have to do something else. Whereby there's actually time to let that dreaming in, which she also was saying is really important to her practice. Do you think that being up here allows for that dream time? And is that is it because of the environment, or is it because of the economic, cheaper to live here, whereby you don't have to work?
What would happen if you're in Melbourne, do you think, and trying to do what you guys are doing?
I can't imagine.
Well, we are very lucky to have, we bought a very cheap property that we can have, my workshop on, so I'm not paying for two properties in Melbourne. So it certainly takes a fair bit of pressure off financially. When I did used to have my studio in Melbourne in a group studio setting, which is actually great.
Yeah. Do you miss that connection with other people?
I do.
Yeah.
No, I do. It is an issue being on my own in my studio a great deal. But I can't imagine ever going back to that situation.
I mean, I would love, because I get distracted a lot. So I feel like if I had others around me working, I'd be a little bit less distracted in a way. It would actually help me. I don't know. They'd be busy, so I'd have to be busy.
Otherwise you'd look like the slack one.
Otherwise I'd look like a slack. And I'd kind of like that bouncing off ideas of other people, because people are really clever and interesting and inspiring, and they see things that you don't see, and that's really helpful and interesting. But again, when I work, it's just me, and I don't even put music on. I like listening to birds.
So some kind of shared studio space might work, but I'm pretty happy. So that's always been something if I was in the city, that's probably what I'd want to do. Here I am pretty happy having my own space. Pretty luxurious.
It's lovely.
It's great. You guys have got a great spot.
So it's with what you were just talking about, your work being inspired by like the lichen and the veins and leaves and stuff, do you feel like your practice is sort of materially based? Is it the materials that inspire you and lead you rather than the concepts or ideas? And what about you, Alex?
No, I think those things provide inspiration for details or aspects of, but I think I don't think my artwork is highly conceptual as some people's are, but I think it's still probably most of the inspiration are fairly intangible things don't come directly from what I see, but more how I might feel about a moment or something. But then my experience of the environment and my feelings for it then do come into play as how I would design details or aspects of it.
So what would you consider to be like a successful, what would make a work successful?
What makes it successful? Well, I suppose if people, people experience some joy or beauty or inspiration. I find myself very often trying to make pieces that are sort of meditative or inspiring or in nature. And so I guess if people respond to that, then that's ultimately, I guess I'm trying to create a moment or a moment of reflection or something like that.
Especially that, like when you put Spherified in the city, where it actually felt like this breathing kind of flower.
What was the material?
Can you tell us about that? Yeah.
Well, that's. I've largely worked with steel because I mostly make mechanical sculpture, and steel is just a good medium for that. But it also had all sorts of other things, sequins and fringing, sort of rayon fringing and plastics, polycarbonate and plywood and all sorts of things. But it was kind of like I suppose it's like a flower that sort of gently opens and closes, sort of flower-like, but as it does so, all the forms of it sort of mesh and unmesh and intersect, and so it is meant to be. I would like it to be beautiful, but I'd like it also to be really engaging and for people to get drawn in to both find all those different shapes that it makes, and then for some people to see how it works, but just to see it as this sort of hypnotic kind of moment, in a sort of busy environment, to take a moment out to kind of peacefully pause and reflect. And it's the speed of it is meant to sort of happen at the rate that a sort of a calm person sort of breathes. That's sort of meant to be the sort of breathing cycle.
That's nice.
Sounds beautiful. Where was it?
It's been at various festivals. The last big festival it's at was at White Night. Last year.
Yeah.
Last year, I guess. Yeah. So by the river.
Fantastic.
So do most of your works have public outcomes? As in, like, sorry, when I say public, I mean, are they like not in a gallery, in public?
I did put quite a lot of works in galleries, especially group shows. I try and do have at least one piece in a group show every year, and keep meaning to have additional solo shows, but they don't seem to find time for them very often at the moment. So I do like that smaller work as well.
Yeah.
But probably most of I suppose the work that I actually make money out of is large public things.
So let's you mentioned money. This is a question that we ask people. Have you managed to earn some money from your work, and is that something that you guys can live off, or is it a supplement? Or
well, it's my full-time
It's your
job.
full-time job. Fantastic.
Don't exactly make a huge amount of money of it, but it's it's enough. Yeah, it's a modest living.
Okay. Well, that makes you a first.
Yeah, everyone seems to have to do other things to substitute, so I think you're a success.
High five.
Well, over the years,
over
the years I would have to do either a bit of functional sort of sculpture design work or this and that, and over the years that's been I've been doing less and less to focus more and more on.
Yeah.
It's still self-employed mostly.
It's also pretty much entirely.
Yeah, and you get to choose.
So, is it mainly through selling works, or through grants, or through?
Never actually directly even applied for a grant. Occasionally, I get pulled into other people's projects where they've got a grant and want to make something happen. Or people, have a big project, and I might write contributing sort of support material.
Yeah.
But mostly it's just sort of commissions in some form or other.
Yeah.
Well, actually, I've done lots of work at events and music festivals. And then it's a fairly funny setup there. after some sort of installation of some sort, and then it's effectively they commission a work for. Usually I'll retain ownership of it, and then I might tour that work around to other events. So it's sort of an unusual niche, I guess.
Yeah.
As well as some permanent ones.
Yeah. Just getting back to the earlier question about what makes a work a success, what would that be for you?
I think it's similar to Alex. If someone's kind of touched or finds meaning through what I do, that'd be pretty satisfying. I'm sort of embarking on making, bespoke dresses for people, and working one-on-one in that process to actually create something that is of meaning to them, but still reflective of me, feels like a nice thing to be able to do for someone, and have that, be a treasured kind of thing, and an heirloom in a way. But yeah, my other sort of textile sort of work, I think just getting people to stop and notice the detail and this, it's pretty nice. When I did your show, so many people told me that they just loved coming around the corner and seeing these, whatever they were, pieces and the detail in them, and and then realising what they were, and that was really, really lovely. So even in that kind of public space, that was great to have that random encounter.
Yeah, we think it's good.
Yeah,
we're
really
into that.
Good. Yeah. But yeah.
So just one other thing that we are interested in is the relationship between art and a politic. Like if it's important that the work is, I don't know, contributing to society, or how do you feel about that? Do you feel like the work has a role? What do you think the role of your work? Or
I think that's where I struggle too, whether I'm artist or artisan, and how does that roll over, or is it one in the same, or is
and what does
craft
it mean?
art is
what
does that mean? It's kind of challenging. I mean, I did have something to say with the bag ladies, which I think felt pretty good to be able to, whether people got it or not, who knows. But I don't know, for me, I think something beautiful can be just as powerful as making a big political statement. Absolutely. If it actually, stops and makes someone think and feel, and I think it's valuable as much as it being a socially or politically kind of. But I think that's important as well. But it's sort of not what I kind of do.
I think I agree with you, though. I think if something's beautiful, then actually that is, a socially important thing,
too,
and
it's still a type of conversation, I guess.
Yeah, I'd hope so. Especially, as society just keeps carrying on as we are. So maybe it does say something in a way. It is just sort of that slowing down and being reflective and appreciating work. What about you?
I think many of my works, I think their intention is, I suppose, really just to contribute to well-being in a public space. And I think sometimes that's enough, or sometimes there's some additional background storytelling which may also hopefully be of interest to people. That's been involved in some works with much more overtly political themes, I guess, of asylum seekers, and even that it wasn't in your face political, but it was that work was very much about just telling personal stories of refugees and asylum seekers to try and sort of humanise or tell more human stories of people who were being very sort of objectified in awful ways in the media. So I mean that, I suppose, was pretty tied into current political themes, and there have been some works with environmental themes. Actually, I'm very passionate about environmental themes, so it's probably odd that I haven't made works that are quite so, in your face about that. And maybe I should at some point soon. My mum told me the other day that I should. So.
Oh, well, your mum says so.
Well, that's sort of similar to the last person we were interviewing, in that there can be different ways of communicating in politics. It doesn't have to be overt, does it? Like, it can be sort of seeped through your work, maybe, or not even.
I'm doing a little thing coming up through through Anna at adult ed. I can't remember what we call it, but and she was inspired. She said, "Can you do your plastic bag things?" And and then I was just thinking the other day, well, what can I do? And I thought again about just found pieces of nature and kind of trying to seamlessly bond plastic bags to these things found in nature, particularly ocean elements, because of how much plastic bags are getting into our oceans, but creating something still beautiful that people would then stop and maybe just reflect again on and go, instead of being like, because we all know that it's really bad, but to actually try and get an emotional response from someone through that could be quite nice. So.
It's a totally different way of trying to reach people, isn't it? Like, it's not through terror or dystopia, or maybe that's part of it, I don't know.
Possibly a little bit dystopian, because I was thinking, this is our creatures going to start evolving with plastic, coming out the side of their heads, and that was it. I had a bit of coral in it. I just thought, imagine it could just be some weird little creature.
I think sometimes that more subtle sort of way of getting a message across may be more powerful and may reach people that are turned off to the in-your-face messages.
Yeah, fatigued.
Because it's pretty heavy.
Where do you see your practice going, like, say 10 years from now? What do you hope you'll be doing?
Okay, you're planning that right now.
I'm planning that right now, well, I'd like to be doing just making and creating instead of having to supplement my income, which I still do.
So you're doing other work?
Yeah, little bits and pieces.
Is it related to what you do, or is it completely unrelated?
There's some hospitality and
is that a deliberate choice to
keep it separate?
Yeah, do you find it easier to?
Yeah, I hadn't actually even thought about trying to blend the two.
Oh, no.
No.
Okay.
I just couldn't even see how I'd do that. Because, it fits mostly with family life, I guess. So that, because, I still the primary caregiver.
How old are your kids now?
6 and 11.
6 and
so
11.
They're getting better. So I am starting to be able to look further ahead and think about what that will look like. So what I'd like to do is to be making dresses or whatever, and with a little side kind of practice of, I guess, these little sculptural kind of textile-based kind of work. Just because that explores opportunities of what's possible with the materials, which I find really fun,
and it takes time too, doesn't it?
It takes time. You need to just
give yourself over.
And dresses and fashion has such a bad name, although there is a move to a more thoughtful consumerism, but it's hard to be a part of that world. So I need to kind of balance that somehow.
Well, it's good. We need you. And
that's good. I'll put that in my business card.
You're needed. Well, it's true. I mean, it's got a bad name because it hasn't been thoroughly reinterpreted into something that's more engaged with bigger issues.
But it's funny because I think I look at old, antique pieces of things that have been beautifully crafted and thoughtful, and there's so much work in there, and it's absolutely beautiful. But you can see the work and the energy that's gone into it, whereas now, people are working in slave conditions to just pump it out, and that's ghastly. And the industry has a lot to feel bad about. So, I will be working with ethically and sustainably sourced fabrics and things like that. So I'm trying to push myself in that kind of market, which will hopefully just grow because I think we are becoming a bit more aware of what is needed.
Are you noticing that? Like, are you thinking that there might be a swell of change in terms of people being prepared to pay for fashion more?
Yeah, well, it's hard because I probably live in a bit of a bubble there, so I'm hoping.
You notice it around here?
Do you notice it around here? Yeah.
Because the economy around here wouldn't be,
No.
you know,
Yeah.
necessarily the strongest in terms of that kind of spending, but you're finding people
I
are
think
prepared
again
to.
that's where you sort of feel like you're sharing values with your
Yeah.
community, and whilst they may not, well, I'd rather someone bought something, once a year, and
yes.
rather than
And pay the right price.
and pay the right
Yeah.
price and enjoy that piece wholly, than have to buy 6 of them a year or something. So I think there is that around here, and I think more broadly, I think Melbourne particularly. I suppose that's because I'm a bit more familiar with Melbourne, but there's lots of growing movements. There's lots of who made your clothes, and there's an ethical accreditation for clothing now.
Okay.
Cool, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so it's Ethical Clothing Australia. There's all these little grassroots movements that, hopefully people are just so sick and tired of. There's always going to be people that are going to want that thing for really cheap. But hopefully we can shift it enough so that that becomes less rather than more.
So what about you, Alex, in 10 years? What do you...
It's a big question.
what would be the dream?
I have dreams of things I want to make, and I'm sort of getting to make some of them now, which is pretty exciting. I guess I
Can't talk about your latest one.
Top secret.
It's not publicly announced yet, but I am working on my biggest commission so far, which is
great.
Fantastic.
very exciting.
Yeah.
And so I suppose similar sorts of things,
Yeah.
and I suppose just having enhanced abilities and facilities and project, so I can work on the projects I dream of working on, I guess.
Getting out of your head the things that are in there.
Yeah.
There's things in there that.
So I don't know, I'm not
Yeah.
struggling to think beyond next year at
Yeah.
the moment. So,
It sounds like a big year.
yeah.
Very exciting.
Which is great.
Is that about it?
I think that's
I reckon
great.
That's what it. Thank you so much for talking to
Very
us.
much.
Thank you.